record button. So here we go. So thank you so much for being here for the September version of the Wealthy Travel Agent Academy Power Hour. I'm Dan Chappell. I'm your host and the founder of the Academy. And, I'm not going to go through my whole spiel, as most of you already know who I am. We do have a lot of new folks in here, which is great because we just finished the twice annually, we launch and release the program Secrets of Selling to the Affluent Traveler. It is a 8-module program now that's expanded from 6. It's kind of a nuts and bolts how to attract affluent clients. And we offer that in the fall and we offer that in the spring. So there was a considerable wait list for it this fall. And thank you so much for those of you who are participating. Welcome to the Academy. And we look forward to sharing with you. Okay. Here we go. So what's new for September? Well, obviously people coming out of the summer months, they tend to take a lot of time off. Some of the mastermind groups that I participate in, we went on hiatus for a while because we all have things to do. So same thing with personal coaching. That is something, as most of you know, is a service that I offer. If you're interested, give me a shout, dan@danchappell.com. I've got 2 slots that are available. It's a 6-month program. As far as I'm concerned, if you want to stay on longer than that, that's great. But if we can't get you pointed in the right direction in 6 months, then something's wrong there. So we limit it to the 6-month program, and then if you want to do check-ins later on, that's entirely up to you. But there's currently 2 slots available. So if you're interested, shoot me a note. In June, we launched the Wealthy Travel Agent Academy VIP Players Club. And this was in response to a number of interviews that I had done and with travel professionals back in January, February. And this was it's a month-to-month membership group that basically uses the SA6 framework to set a success path for you. For those of you who are, and it's more of a general business type of program to help really get you engaged in your business and on the right track to profitability from there. So we follow the success path that's laid out by the SA6 framework. New content's added monthly, and actually includes the course itself that I built out about 1.5 years ago. That course is so important, so important to the success of your program that I included it in the membership fee there, or into the membership program as well. It drips out a module each week or every other week, so you've got plenty of time to work on the program as well. And something that I'm working on now, and it's very much its infancy, but we've started a YouTube channel. The Wealthy Travel Agent YouTube channel. So if you don't mind, go over to YouTube and just search for Wealthy Travel Agent, and please subscribe. The more subscribers we get, the more popular the channel will get, and the more we can share the love of the Wealthy Travel Agent Academy as we go through. So that's news for September. Let's, if you've got questions, please type in the Q&A box. I've got the chat box open too, but the Q&A box is actually easier for me to read out of this. As we mentioned earlier, the session is being recorded, and I'm going to encourage you to take some notes. This is a little bit of a departure from what we normally do, because I'm going to go through and we're going to talk a lot today primarily about the business of the travel business. A lot of us get into this business for a lot of different reasons. We love to travel. We love to take care of people. We want to set up a side business to earn a little bit of extra money. We may want to turn it into a full-time income. Some, want to supplement their retirement with it. There's so many people get into it for so many reasons, but at the end of the day, the travel business is a business, and it needs to be treated as such. And most of the folks that are coming in that I see, don't really have a strong business background. A little bit of familiarity with some things, but when you are in your host agency or in your consortia, they're shoving marketing down your throat. You've got to market. Okay, and I don't disagree with that. there is a certain amount of marketing that has to be done, but there's a lot of other different components to running a successful business and growing a successful business. Marketing is just a piece of that. Now, the issue that we face in this industry is that we tend to let our marketing do the selling for us, and that really doesn't work because they're two separate things. So when we take a look at this, we're going to talk about the business of the travel business, and really the single most important thing for you to be concerned about, other than, and this is with you taking off that sales hat and putting your business hat on. As a business owner, the single most important thing that you have to be concerned with, is cash flow. Cash flow is the lifeblood of the business. Think of it as the blood. Think of it as the blood of your business. And if you're, constantly nourishing it and feeding it with nutrients, it's going to grow, and it's going to continue to be strong and pump through the business. But if you're not, and it starts to hemorrhage, where you're bleeding money out of the business, where you're constantly having to give a what I would call a business transfusion, meaning that you're having to constantly put money into your business in order to support your marketing, to be able to pay the rent if you have to do that, or pay your whatever bills that are associated. Even if you've got a home-based business and you don't think you have any bills, you do have bills that are directly proportionate to your business, and you use those, particularly in North America, where you can write off small business expenses. Those are the ones that I'm talking about in there. You've got different types of expenses, but cash flow is king. And it's not just in the travel business, it's in any business that you become involved in. You could be in a network marketing business, you could be in own a grocery store or whatever. As long as the money is coming in, you can pay your bills and you can take some money out for yourself. If it's not coming in, then that's not a good thing. That's a weak business, and that's something that you need to start taking steps to shore that up. Typically in the travel business, by the time it gets to the point where it needs an transfusion or influx of cash from you, you're well on your way down the path of not recognizing it soon enough, and you're either paying to support your own hobby, or it's time to get out of the business altogether for there. So the business of the travel business really revolves around cash flow. As I said, it's the lifeblood of your business. Golfers live by this saying: you drive for show and putt for dough. Anybody ever heard that? It's such a truism in our business as well, because we get paid on a commission. And when we're talking to, you're at your conferences, or typically when you're talking to your supplier reps, they're talking about sales volume. They're talking about gross sales volume. They're talking about how much you're selling it to the customer for. Okay, how much the client is paying. What is your business volume build? And if you hit $1 million in business volume, you're going to get an award, right? Well, that's great. Anybody try to eat an award? Probably not. So a lot of times what we neglect, because we get so caught up in the recognition part and everything else that comes with that, and being able to walk across the stage and get the awards, and get called out in the meetings and the conferences and things like that. The reality of it is, we need to be focused on the revenue, meaning the amount of the money that we actually stick in our pocket at the end of the day, which is the commission revenue, could be revenue and fees. So when we talk about drive for show and putt for dough, getting up on the stage, that's the driving for show. If you've ever been to a golf tournament, you see it. You got these big booming, drives off the tee. They go, a couple hundred yards. It looks great. Wow, it's in the middle of the fairway, but that's one shot. It may take 2 shots to get to the green and 3 shots to put it in the hole. Well, that's where you make your money, is putting the ball in the hole. And we make our money on how much we actually keep out of each transaction at the end of the day. So if you discount or rebate in any way, shape, or form, you should look at that. And let's say you've got a $500 commission, and you are rebating $100. Well, you're giving back 20% of your own revenue back, to the client. Now, you may have to do that to get the sale or whatever. You got your own reasons for doing it, but I want you to be cognizant of how much revenue you give up and how much dough you're giving up, because we're all about revenue. You know, the best lesson I learned ever in this business when it comes to cash flow is it doesn't matter how big your sales numbers are. It doesn't matter how many awards you get. It's how much money you got in your pocket at the end of the day. So start thinking like that. And that's how a business person is going to think. Okay. They're going to think about, you know, what they get to keep. So stay focused on the dough. Okay. When you're tracking your sales, I would encourage you to track it based on your commission and fee revenue versus your gross sales, because the gross sales number, it really doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't matter unless you're going for co-op or something like that. But from, you know, what we really want to focus on is our money, how much money we're going to get. We're going to talk more about how cash flow and projecting cash flow and how that's going to benefit you here in just a second. Hopefully all this makes sense so far. Okay, so there's some important numbers that you really need to know. These are things that you need to be cognizant of. We talk about knowing your numbers. It's not just about your sales numbers. It's not just about, you know, how many contacts did you make, how many presentations did you make, and how many sales did you make. It's not just that. As with your hat on as the business owner, there are things that you have to be cognizant of. Excuse me. First of all, it's break even. Okay, how much money do you have to make to cover your costs? How much? You know, we all have costs that are here, and I'll go through the fixed and variables here in just a second here. But how much money do you have to, what do you have to earn for your business each month in order to break even, so that you're just swimming there right at the top of the water? Your eyes are right there at the ground level or water level, not up above, not down below, but just right dead even there. What's your break even point? And we all have it. Like I said, even if you're working from home and you don't think you have expenses, you do. You do have some expenses there. And when we talk about break even, this doesn't count, this doesn't even take into consideration what you take out of the business. Okay, we're talking about fixed and variable costs here. Okay, average commission. You need to know that number, because that's how you're going to help project a lot of other things that we're going to talk about. And projections are really guesses, but you can make some accurate projections. So what is your commission? Now, if you've been in business for a while, you know what your actual commission is, your average commission is. You can just look at your numbers and divide it by the number of sales you had, and there you go. Okay, now then that is commission per transaction. And if you're brand new to the business and you've got goals, then you can decide, okay, I want to earn $5,000 a month. I'm going to need to average, what, $250 per transaction or $500 per transaction. How many transactions do I have to make to earn that? Okay, or if you want to get over a big number up here, what do you got to do to get there? So knowing what your average commission is going to really help you stay focused on making individual sales, because the other end of the numbers typically will take care of itself, provided you're working on products that you typically do, not going outside the box there. Fixed costs. Fixed costs are your rent. If you've got a storefront, if you rent out an office somewhere, if you've got even if you rent a room out in your house for tax purposes, that's what I do. Is I have a certain amount of square feet in my house that we count as office space. That's a fixed cost that I have to pay towards the mortgage. What are you've got marketing and tech fees that you have depending on who you're associated with, that are going to be the same each month. They're deducted usually automatically. Those are fixed costs that you're going to have each month that you've got to cover. Now, your variable costs. Okay, your variable costs are things like your local advertising. Now, notice I didn't say local marketing. Marketing is a very encompassing thing, but advertising, where you're actually placing an ad in a newspaper or buying Facebook ads or spending money at the local level to help improve your sales volume. Okay, those vary because those are optional participation things. Even within your consortia and your host agency, you've got marketing programs that you can opt in and out of to pay for, just depending on what you want to do. You know, my specialty obviously is selling to the fluent traveler and attracting the fluent traveler. I'm probably not going to participate in the Carnival or the Globus mailers. I'm going to probably participate in the Seabourn or Tauk or Insight type vacation mailers that are out there. So those are variables. Those are things that you can control and change. Promotions. Travel is a big one. Travel is a big one. We're in the travel business. A lot of us get in the business to travel. So that is a huge variable that you have to work with. Travel could be anywhere from going to an educational opportunity at a conference. Because those are optional things, unless you're in Virtuoso, it's required that you attend. But for most part, things like that are optional. So you need to budget accordingly, obviously, but those are things that you have to all take in consideration, and that's your fixed and your variable costs. There is a cost to doing business no matter what. You know, you may have, your internet may be a set fee each month, or it may be based on consumption. So, you know, if it's a set fee, like mine is, then it's a fixed cost. If it's based on consumption, like a lot of folks have, based on just how many gigs you use, then it's a variable. Your cell phone bill's probably a fixed cost. Because of the type of plan you're on. So start thinking about that. Get with your CPA and really figure out what your fixed and variable costs are and how they affect your business. Because that, you know, whatever, as I said, whatever you, at the end of the day, your goal is to put money in your own pocket. And every dollar you spend somewhere else is money that you don't get to keep. Okay. And I'm all about, as a business person, keeping as much as we can to maintain the cash flow. Now we get into the part that I kind of alluded to in the very beginning, and that is your year, your business year, your sales year started September 1. And I want you to think about that for a second. What does that mean? Well, what it means is typically anything that you've already got on the books from between now and the end of the year, that's pretty much going to remain the same. It's not going to change too much. You might get a cancellation, you might get an addition here or there, but for the most part, everything that you sell from here on out is going to affect next year. It's going to go on the books for 2019. So that's what the sales year is. The sales year goes from September until August versus a calendar year, which is what most of your suppliers will track you by. They'll determine what your commission levels are, your co-op, how much they're going to compensate you. Your hosts and consortia will look at your revenue numbers during those time periods to, you know, based on a number of things. It could be a pooled group of money for marketing, things like that, and what your level of participation is on that. And the reason why we make the difference here is, and I want you to track it both ways if you aren't doing this already. When you make a sale, okay, that dollar, and I'm going to show you a table here in a minute. That money that you sold today, let's say it's for a trip in 2019, it actually is received over here. You don't, just because you make the sale today doesn't mean you're going to receive the money until later on. And on top of that, you know, they may pay you 2 months prior or 3 months prior to the actual trip departure date. That money really doesn't technically belong to you until they travel. That is when commission is considered earned. So you may have gotten paid out and your client cancels, you may have to refund back to the supplier a portion or all of your commission. Okay, that sucks. We don't like doing that, giving money back, but it happens. And so you have to compensate there as well. In your program and in your planning is, what is your cancellation rate? Okay, everyone has a cancellation rate. It should be between, ideally, somewhere between 6 and 10%. You know, if it's less than that, you're not throwing enough against the wall to stick. If it's more than that, well, You may look at what you're selling and how you're selling it and things like that. But you want to use those numbers as well as part of your projection and planning. Sales year, you're in the middle of your first quarter. This is very important. When we talk luxury travel sales, the biggest months for those is typically going to be September, October, and November. Okay. Sorry about that. Thought I'd turn that off. So September, this quarter that you're in right now, this is your wave season when we talk about luxury travel. Why? Well, think about it. This is when most of the Alaska travel is sold. This is when most of the summer Europe travel is sold. So this is the time that you're starting to get the business on the books. Okay. It's going to travel next year. It's going to count towards a lot of things, and you're going to receive the revenue next year. But our goal right now is to create as big of a backlog as you possibly can. You should be in major selling mode right now for Europe and Alaska. Okay. Getting that on the books is so important because they're big trips and people tend to book those further out. Our booking window tends to be 4 to 6 months in most cases. But when we talk about the more exotic and the higher priced destinations and things like that, tend to get a little bit more of a booking window, particularly if it's a seasonal destination like Alaska and Europe. The seasonal destinations, there's a finite number of days, finite number of ships and hotel rooms that people will be able to occupy during that time period. So people are starting to fight for it. It helps keep pricing up, which is fantastic for all of us. But we want to create as big of a backlog as we possibly can for the following year. And that starts now. Okay, that starts now. So if you don't have an Alaska cruise night scheduled, plan it. If you don't have a European travel night scheduled, plan it. If you're focusing on river cruising, now's the time to set up the events and the promotions and everything that you need to do to start driving that business. Most of and I'm not going to call them out by name, but the largest travel businesses that I'm aware of that I used to deal with when I was at WinStar, the biggest agencies from a volume standpoint, their number one booking month was not wave season in January, February, March. No, it was October. Either September or October, usually October, because that's when the higher dollar volume sales take place. Okay, so that's why you want to really get focused on that right now. Now, ideally, what you want to do is have between 40 and 60% of your revenue for next year on the books by January 1. Why? Well, you're already 3 months in. Okay, the more you have on the books, the less you're going to have to cover when it comes to breaking even and covering your costs. Let's see if I can get to the next one here. Okay, let's talk about the backlog and how the cash flow works and everything else like this. So most successful advisors have 60% of their business will be on the books by 2019 by January 1st. Your agencies, your agents, whatever, that's when the bulk of that business takes place. Okay, so everything that you book September, October, November pretty much is going to go over and sail or travel in the year of 2019. Okay, and so that year actually goes from September to August, as you can see right there, and then it starts off moving into the next year. Now, I did this, did a quick scenario here, and this is something that if you're not doing this right now, this is how you project your cash flow and what your needs are going to be, and how this will affect your sales plan. It'll affect everything that you do. Is based on how much you have on the books going into the beginning of the year. So for this scenario, I use based on commission revenue of $50,000 and getting 20,000 of it on the books by January 1. Now, depending on what the product is, and for the most part, as I said, you're booking your summer travel right now. Typically, your bigger summer travel stuff. So you're going to start receiving more and more of that money in March, April, May. So those are going to be kind of peak months. Now, if you've got a fixed cost of of for your expenses of around $2,000 a month. Okay, you know what that is. You know that you have to have $2,000 a month just to pay the bills, to keep the lights on, to keep the business going, to keep everything up and running. We call it $2,000 a month. Well, January, you're not going to receive a whole lot of money out of this, and there's going to be some that's trickled in from back earlier in the year, which for the people that book a year out. But this is this will give you an idea of what you need to do here. So, and you can run your reports. I think it's most of you probably have client-based or something similar where you can run a report based on when the commissions are due and when the trips actually take place. So, for the most part, of this 20,000 that we have on the books by January 1, the 40% that we have, it's divvied up throughout the year. Okay, January, you only got, you don't really have anything going in February or March typically, so maybe some spring break trips. So let's call it you're getting $500 in. You're still selling on top of this now. Don't get me wrong, you're still selling, but February you're getting a little bit more, in March, April, May, and then it starts winding down as you're starting to collect commissions that are due in the fall. And you might hit a holiday sailing here or there that's going to add some pop, to you there. But for the most part, what we're looking at here is what your monthly income is, how much you're going to be able to expect to receive based on your backlog as of January 1. So it's kind of proportioned out through there. So already on the books, we know January 1, we're going to have to earn a minimum $1,500 just to break even in sales. We're going to have to do this, $500 in February. March, April, May, you have a surplus. Okay, and in June you're flat out break even, and then it's dropping off now as you go. So you don't take all this money you're getting in March, April, and May and spending it. Okay, this is what you're using to cover your costs. You're gonna keep that in the bank and cover your costs as you need going down through there. Now, it's pretty easy to make money in the travel business because we really don't have a lot of overhead. We don't own the product. We're paid on commission, and we get paid, when it sells, or when it travels. But we don't. The overhead that we have is typically where you're sitting right now. It's your computer, it's your internet connection, it's your electricity, and your fees that you have to your other organizations, the things that you're part of. So if you're a home-based entrepreneur, I'm going to probably say $2,000 in a month in expenses is probably pretty high. Okay, so you're not going to have to earn that much necessarily to get there. So the more that you can earn, the more you're going to be able to put in your pocket against your fixed expenses. Now, then you can have some money that you've got that you can use for your variables. So you're going to want to run some promotions here and there in the local market. You're going to want to do a cruise night. You're going to want to do a river cruise presentation. You're going to want to bring the Insight rep in or somebody like that, or the Taup rep, and do a presentation. And you've got other marketing that you're going to need to focus on, for your retention and to keep the customers that you have for life in there. So does this make sense to everyone? Just click, in the chat, just say yes or no. Yes. Excellent. Good. Someone, I'm going to arrow up here real quick. Someone had made the comment about less than 5% of their business. Okay, less than 5% of my cruise. So commission comes after, sometimes 3 months after travel. So cash flow is much later. Okay. Get that. What you want to do is take then the same thing. So if it comes as much as 3 months later, I'm going to say for the most part, you probably get paid within 2 weeks to a month after the fact. Well, that's how you're going to project your own cash flow in here based on, okay, you've got someone that's traveling in May, you're probably not going to get paid till June. So then you would put that projected revenue in the month of June. Okay, does that make sense? So you can use the same type of system to project your cash flow out. Okay, and for land trips too, they tend to, because they tend to be more complicated, they may not necessarily have as long of a booking window, just because there's the perception there of you can go whenever you want to kind of thing, versus cruises, you've got a certain time that you can go, so it's a fixed season in there. So you use this model to project your cash flow, and that way you'll know how much you have to sell each month to cover costs down the line. Okay, so that's kind of, when I had my business, this is what I always did. I tracked, obviously how much I had coming in on any given day, but more importantly, I just wanted to sell. I wanted to get as much on the books going into the year as I possibly could. My goal was always to do 60%, and that didn't matter if we were, 100 doing, $1 million or 5 million, 10 million, whatever the level of the business was at the time. I wanted 60% of the business on the books prior to the year starting. So that way I know I've got projected revenue coming in. I'm not starting from scratch every single month coming in. You also know, based on that, you're going to know how much traveled revenue you're going to have with your suppliers, and it's going to be easier to project that. So when you're working on budgets with them, you've got a better idea of how much is on the books, because that's all they're going to do. They're going to look at, okay, we've got X number of dollars on the books for this year. They don't care what you've got on the books for next year. If you've booked it in a $20,000 trip in May to travel in the year 2020, they really don't care. All they care about is what is going to travel in that calendar year, because that affects their bonus. It affects the company. It affects you as far as your standing in, maybe moving up to a different commission, higher or lower commission level. It affects a lot of things, because that's how they track. They track based on traveled revenue. Okay, whereas with us, we're going to kind of track more based on, a projection. Just because I sold $10,000 worth of commission today, it's going to be divvied up over the course of a few months. So I know I'm going to have to keep doing that until you get into that cycle where the actual cash coming in, either you're at break even or a positive standpoint, and then you can start thinking about what's your compensation out of this? How much is your time worth? Okay, and you should always keep that in the back of your mind, because you don't want to, you didn't buy a job. I'm sure most of us didn't want to do that. We want a business that is going to support a lifestyle. Okay, and so there's a lot of work that goes into getting it to that point. Okay. So this is the way you get there, is to use a repeatable system. And I'm just going to use as an example the SA6 acceleration framework that I've used over the years. Put it all together. It's an easy circle. It's that you keep doing over and over and over again, regardless, whatever your sales system is, your marketing system, whatever it is that you follow, it's got to be repeatable. Okay, the more you can repeat it, the more money you're going to start bringing in. It's like McDonald's. We've used that example a lot. McDonald's just doesn't sell one hamburger. It sells billions of hamburgers, because they have a repeatable system to get the same burger out at the same time all the time. Okay? So you can follow the same type thing. And your system should focus on attraction marketing. Okay, and a lot of your attraction marketing that you do as a travel professional is going to come from your host agency and consortia. If you're not using that right now, you should venture into that. Okay, that's when I say we're not in the marketing business. There's a lot of reasons I say that, but number one, we're not marketing professionals. We don't know how to build out an ad necessarily. We don't know how to put together full color brochures and postcards and all this kind of stuff. They're professionals. That is the job of your consortia or your host agency. That is really why they're there, is to support your sales efforts through marketing programs primarily. So if you're not participating in those, take a look at them, and the ones that are right for your business you want to use, okay, because you want to take advantage of everything that you can to attract customers to your business. Now, I used to just call this prospecting, but it's direct referral marketing is what it is. It's a form of prospecting. This is going out to, this is what I teach. I've been teaching it for years and years and years. This is where you're going to your close family and friends and people around you and current clients and asking in a systematic manner for the referral that fits what you want to sell, not just any given referral or telling people, the best compliment you can give me is a referral. No, that's not what it is. You're asking for, if you're selling the Danube for river cruising, you're specifically requesting that type of a referral, that person. Who do you know that would be interested in taking a river cruise on the Danube? There's a lot more to it than that, but that's essentially what you're doing. You're not asking, who wants to take a Carnival cruise or who wants to take a Crystal cruise. No, you're asking for something specific there, and it's just a form of prospecting. So you've got to do that. Then you get into the selling process, the sales cycle. The biggest thing you can do in that process is asking lots of questions. Questions, because as many questions as you ask and as many as you can answer, and then you present them with two options, actually really one, but you've got one in your back pocket. You presented something based on what they have shared with you, then boom, okay, you've got them in there, and you sell. There's a process to selling in itself. There's a process to all of this. Retention marketing, once you've got those folks, you want to keep them, okay? So hopefully your consortium or your host agency has some pieces that are available for, and it's typically the things that have longer shelf life, like your magazines or things like that, not the flyers and postcards or emails or anything like that. It's the higher end stuff. But for you personally, you need to start reaching out. Send them, just pick up the phone and call them if you got a minute. Send them postcards, send them an email, send them a birthday card. Whatever you do, that's retention, because you've spent a lot of money, time, and effort to get them as a customer. You want to keep them as you come around. And then the other part about this, which is a strategic part, is a sustainability of the business as a whole. And that is what we've been talking about today. And that's where the cash flow is so important, because everything that you're doing here for attraction and direct referral marketing and selling and retention, all is designed to generate cash flow, that lifeblood of your business. If you're not doing these other things to get that result, then you need to kind of probably take a step back, look at, okay, where do I need to improve? Okay, your host and consortia, as I said, they're marketing organizations, and that's why they put so much emphasis on that to you. But that's not what we do. We're not experts in marketing. Okay, we're travel salespeople. So we're taking that and using that to attract in, selling them, and then because of the relationships that we've established with folks, we want to do what we have to do to retain them. And that's what's going to create that sustainability and that cash flow keep coming in so that you can keep this cycle going. This is a repeatable process. As I said, whether it's this one or something else that you do, make sure you have something that you do and you do it consistently. Okay, that's the key, is doing it consistently. One-shot deal is not going to do it. Okay. Okay, so we're coming to the end of this. I'm going to open it up for questions here in just a second. The next Power Hour will be next month on October the 10th. And yes, Julianne, it will be at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is noon on the East Coast. So mark your calendars already. I'll be posting the link as well later on and sending it out to you via email in a couple of weeks out there. Okay, let's open up to questions. We've got about 20 minutes or so. Let me pull this up here and just kind of go through and see what we've got. So I'm going to start off with the first one that was actually emailed to me earlier. In the TRO webinar, I talked about, a luxury upgrade could be somebody, going from a balcony stateroom to a suite, not necessarily going from Carnival to Crystal. Okay. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, the step in price and expectation between just a standard balcony cabin and a suite is considerable. Typically, you're typically going from about $3,000 to $5,000 to $10,000, $8,000 to $10,000 plus, and then in the suite levels they have concierge and butlers and all of this kind of stuff. The other thing that affects that, though, is brand loyalty. A lot of people don't want to make that jump from Carnival to Crystal or Royal Caribbean up to, Seabourn, which there's a very good reason why Royal Caribbean uh, recently bought Silver Sea. It's because they can jump them within the brand. And the reason I say jump them within the brand is don't ever underestimate the power of brand loyalty. Okay, people who have sailed on those particular products multiple times, they get a lot of benefits. Just like when you fly on airlines, if you're a frequent flyer and you get the benefit of early boarding, or you get upgrades to first class, which doesn't happen very often anymore. But there's benefits to being a frequent traveler. So taking advantage of that, rather than say, what, you're a balcony stateroom on Holland America for the last 5 years. Rather than saying, I think Seabourn would be a good bump for you, say, what, have you thought about a Neptune suite? Okay, so they're very comfortable, and the reason I say this is they're already very comfortable with the product that they're using. Okay, if it's Holland America or whatever it is, in this case, example, it's Holland America, they're already very comfortable with the shift. They're very comfortable with the people. They're comfortable with the surroundings. That's their comfort level. But you can make them more comfortable on board by offering them the suite. Most of the time, the reason why people don't buy suites is because they've never been offered. They've never been offered. So from a sales perspective, put the sales hat back on, it's easier to start high and come down than it is to start low and go up. Okay? Always remember that. So always start high and come down if that's the way you got to go. Okay. So did that answer your question? I hope. Let's see. Going down through here. Okay. Rita is asking a question in the question box. Excellent. Let me grab a sip here. In your book, you said that you started out by buying member lists, members of country clubs, charities, etc. How do you acquire such lists? That's a great question. I don't know that necessarily in today's market it is as valuable as it was back when I first started in the business. But there are companies that will sell you lists. You tell them exactly what it is that you're looking for, and they'll sell them to you. Okay, for a one-time use or for a multiple use. Today's lists primarily are email lists that you can rent. If what you're doing is you're renting, really, and you can put down specific country clubs, charities, neighborhoods, zip codes, whatever you want. There's a lot of ways that you can slice and dice if you want to buy those things. Today you've got a lot of other more targeted attraction methods that you can use through Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, things like that. I would, one of the things that I do is, hang on a second. Oh, buying lists. Is that still allowed? Yes, you can buy lists. It doesn't necessarily, and it depends on where you are from a social marketing standpoint. You can't email someone, you can't mail someone unless they've opted in. Most of the lists, though, are going to be targeted, I think, towards direct mail, or people who have opted in for certain things that will allow them to, to be able to reach out to them legally. You've also got spammers. We all get spammed by people buying phone numbers and things like that. So, there's a lot of ways to get those lists. But you could run ads on Facebook to drive business in, give them something. They call it, I forgot what you call it. Anyway, they come in and you give them, say, a packing list and how to do this or how to do that in exchange for their email list. Now they're on your list and you start going. Lead magnet. Thank you, Janet. I had blanked out there for a minute. But here's the thing, folks. I'm of the belief that, you don't necessarily need to get on Facebook. You don't necessarily need to go and do all of those kind of things and try to attract people that you don't know. Start out with your own circle of influence, your own group of people, and use what we've been teaching for the last almost 20 years now. But use that direct referral marketing technique to go to the people that you know and ask them for the referrals. That way you're getting people, you're getting hot leads, you're getting referred by somebody who trusts you, which means they're more likely going to do business with you. But that's the way I would work in it. There's the old, I refer to this often, actually, the old story about acres of diamonds. Basically, you're standing on your own acres of diamonds. You just have to start mining it and starting to get out of there. If Mark asks, if you do social marketing, is it better to create a sense of urgency with a call to action than it is, or is it better to ask for the sale? I would go with a call to action. Social marketing tends to be, it's like cold calling. These are people you probably don't know, so asking them to buy something right off the bat's probably going to turn them off. You'll probably want to do a call to action, as I said, to come to your website, get the lead magnet, and start nurturing them a little bit from there and building the relationship. Okay, let me go over here to the chat. That's where it looks like most of them are coming in. Esty, how many announcement letters would you suggest sending out at a time? Do you follow up with a phone call on all of them? Well, if you're sending out announcement letters, that means you've got a list. Okay. I would send them all out at once, assuming that there's, 50 to 100 or whatever, something that's manageable. And yes, I would follow up with a phone call. And make sure that you tell them, though, in the email or in the announcement letters that go out, make sure that you let them know that, I'll be following up with you. I'll be reaching out to you in the next week or so, blah, blah, blah. And that way it's in their head already that you will be calling them and why you will be calling them. Yeah, it just depends on the size of your list. And, because if you send out 1,000, you're probably going to get 10 respond or 50 respond. I don't know, whatever the response rate is. Just make sure that you can handle it, as they're coming in, because you don't want to get overwhelmed with people that are prospects, and then you can't serve them all. And then it looks bad there. Okay. Yeah. Do I ever incentivize referrals? That's a great question. I do not. And here's why. The people who are going to refer you are typically doing it because they want to, not because you're buying them a cup of coffee or, doing anything like that. And there's been studies that have shown that it's more effective not to incentivize than it is to, offer something up. As I said, I don't do it. I don't tell my coaching clients, I'll give you 10% off if you refer somebody in, because it doesn't matter, if they're actually going to refer someone to me, it means that they're happy with me. Okay. And the same thing's true with you. If someone's happy with your service, they'll gladly refer as long as you ask. You just got to ask, though. And that's where most of us fall short, is we don't ask for the referral. We don't ask if they can introduce us to people that they know who are traveling. And, most of the people that you're asking, they tend to run in their same socioeconomic groups. So, the people that you're trying to attract through them are going to be similar to them in terms of where they travel, how much they spend on travel, all of that kind of good stuff in there. So those are, that I keep going back to that, the acres of diamonds that you're sitting on, rather than, doing this broad, thing about with Facebook ads and LinkedIn ads and all these kind of things. I bring it back to who do you know? Okay. Working the circle of influence of people who know who you are and will vouch for you. I think I showed a figure in the TRO webinar that over 80% across all generational groups, 80% and higher, will do business with someone who was a referral from someone they trust, particularly in friends and family. Let's see. What are the words you use to ask for a referral? It's going to depend on really what type of referral you're asking for, but I would, if I have a customer who's very happy with the way we do business, Do you, if you're happy with something, then you reach out to them and say, you know, thank you so much. Thank them for being a customer. Um, you know, Obviously, you have friends that probably like to travel similar to the way you do. Who do you know that might be interested in taking that river cruise next year? And just kind of put it out there like that. And as I said, people like to help each other. Um, that's what you're asking for. You're asking for help. You're not asking somebody to buy something. When you ask somebody to buy something that's close to you, they put up the big cross like, you're the vampire, stay away. But if you're asking them for help, they tend to do it. Now, not everybody's going to, but again, unless you ask, you don't know. Great, thank you. I don't, but someone suggests doing it, and I said it was not comfortable. Okay, fine. If you're not comfortable asking directly, oh, okay. I'm sorry. That was I think in reference to incentivizing referrals. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. If you don't believe in doing it, then don't. I don't believe in doing it. So, but if you want to incentivize somebody, see if it works for you. My experience has been that it has not worked most of the time. Any other questions before we wrap it up here? I'm looking. I want to make sure that I've got everything here. Buying lists. I don't know the ins and outs, but I'm sure they figured out a way to get around it. Lead magnet, yeah. So we're going to talk about attracting people to your website, and even when we're talking about attracting people, it doesn't necessarily have to be through Facebook groups. It could be somebody you're standing in front of at the grocery store. Hand them your card. Go to my website. Check this out. If you want to learn how to pack. Announcement letter on letterhead or on an invite style card. Okay, that's a great question. So it depends on the type of business that you want to do. And for those of you who are here, because I specialize in attracting affluent clients, I'm assuming that's what you're doing there as well. Plus, I know Esti's what her focus is here. I would do it not necessarily on letterhead. I actually use when I'm reaching out to people, I do something handwritten a lot of times. And I've got printed stationery with my monogram on it that I use, so it's more personal. Now, your basic announcement letter saying that you're coming, that you're in the business, yeah, I would do that on letterhead. I would do that on some sort of letterhead or personal letterhead. I wouldn't put something like from the desk of Dan Chappelle. I mean, that sounds pretentious and stupid, but maybe your name across the top and smaller what you're doing, so that way you're catching their eye, and then they see why you're there, what you're talking about. Hope that answered the question. Any more questions? We got about 5 minutes. Okay. All right, so we'll wrap it up here real quick. Again, I want to go back to, this is your first quarter. This is your first month of your first quarter. Now is where you should really be focused on getting, sales. Sales is so important. That's the lifeblood of what you're doing. Okay. So, your big high ticket items are typically going to come this fall. So those are the ones you want to stay focused on. And if you think about it, your reps, your BDMs that serve your area, if you talk to them, they're going to tell you that they don't have a day off until January or somewhere close to Christmas. And that's because starting September 1st through Christmas, they're doing a cruise night or a tour night 7 days a week. 7 days a week, because you fish when the fish are biting, you cut hay when the sun's shining, and that's what we're in right now. Now the fish are biting, and so this is where we want to really put that focus on getting those sales, because what you sell now is going to drive your cash flow into 2019, and that cycle continues from there. All right, great. Mark, this is fantastic. Thank you. I'm glad I joined the Wealthy Travel Agent. Just recently read an article that people are not accustomed to handwritten mail pieces. Absolutely. You get lots of response from handwritten notes from existing clients. You better believe it. You look at your mailbox. How much stuff do you really get anymore? A lot of us get our bills, electronically. I mean, virtually every bill that we get in our family comes electronically. So I'm like a kid. I remember when I used to go, and I get mail. That's kind of how we are today is, we don't get mail anymore. So we're running down to the mailbox to check it out. So when you get something from someone that's handwritten and showing appreciation and asking for help, man, people are going to jump all over that. Well, thank you all so much. I appreciate this. I'm going to get this downloaded onto the site probably later today or tomorrow for those of you who want to revisit it. And hopefully I answered all your questions. If I didn't, please send me an email, dan@danchappelle.com, and I will happy to address them individually from there. So for that, thanks so much, and we will see you next month on the Wealthy Travel Agent Power Hour.